Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me again. This is just where we're going to be absolutely real. You're at home with me. You can see my bathroom in the background today, and I've just made a fresh mug with my Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment, which I'll be talking about, and it'll be referred to as CADT, the Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment. It's located in Duluth, Minnesota, where I am right now. I want to talk about the magic inside of you. And before I start going and people miss a few things, I thought I would just kind of have some small talk in the beginning, which is equally important. Most of you may be becoming aware or are fully aware at some variation, depending on your experience level and maturity, the kind of home that you grew up in, and the kind of things that you were exposed to, the experiences that you had, that really nothing is what you were told that it is. I'm going to expound on that today by sharing just a couple of experiences. At 59 years of age, having lost my 24-year-old child, who's transitioned with the ancestors just a little over a year ago, 10/29/19, we had a really rough row from the time he became addicted in 2016 in a skiing accident. We have in Northeast Minnesota here, we have a local ski hill that was about 15 or 20 minutes away from the home that we had in Cloquet, Minnesota. And I would take my son up there in the very beginning when he was about 9 years old, and I had him do snowboarding lessons, private lessons, and then some group lessons. And he wanted to quit, like children do. And I said, no, keep going, otherwise I'm going to go tell the guy you quit. And he's like, no, he was embarrassed. So he got to be really quite a good snowboarder. And then he decided a little bit later teenage, early adult life, he's going to do skiing instead of snowboarding as much. He got really good at snowboarding. And he would often go into a place that's a special area at Spirit Mountain Ski Hill in Duluth, Minnesota. That was called the Terrain Park. They had the metal rails, so they could kind of slide down the metal rails and do all the things that I would never do. I always dream about being able to be a skateboarder and a surfer and a sand surfer, because I had my son do skimboarding and all that stuff back home and surfing. And I wanted him to get a full rounded experience with being able to turn to nature, so that when I was gone, figuring I would be departing and joining the ancestors first, being 34 years his elder, he would be able to cope with whatever came his way without using substances. So this was very much discussed during his upbringing, with me being a solo parent, was you can surf, you can skimboard, you can go to the ocean, where we used to go and play until he was 7. And we moved to Northeast Minnesota due to the cost of living. We moved, frankly, because people are being pushed and pulled around with this artificial cost of living, with go get a job, with everybody needs to go to school, and everyone needs to have vaccines, and everyone needs to do this, and everyone needs to do that. When you get, quite a bit more mature and you've lived around this for a while, your eyes are a little bit more open. You start to say to yourself, you know what? This is starting to feel like I'm being pushed and prodded, like the cows I see on the factory farms. It just doesn't feel good. I was raised in a very, very different way than most anyone I've ever met in my life. I've really actively sought out to find others that may have been raised similarly to myself, because frankly and honestly, candidly and directly, however you want to put it, it's tedious to kind of feel like you need to bring somebody up to speed a little bit when you just really want to share what's going on, and you can tell that they're hesitant and they're doubting you. So I really appreciate it with a lot of my viewers are like, hey, I've had some of those experiences, or I know exactly what you're talking about. Or, I've had a few, and I can definitely see there's credibility in what you're speaking about. But since there's a herd mentality, And since there are so many industries, medical, like we've been speaking about in my live streams here, I've been speaking about, there are many, many industries, which I'm going to get into later, which funnel people into predictable little corrals. I don't want to be in that corral. I believe in nature and I believe in the power of magic. I believe in human connection. I believe in imagination. I believe that we're more than able to learn our mother tongue, whatever language that is, and that really is telepathy. That really is mind to mind communication. But mind to mind communication, and this is the important part of the live stream that's going to lead up to the second piece here. Mind to mind communication that Grandmother Etna was teaching me, my maternal grandmother, in 1965, when she said, "Of course you can hear the ancestors," is not going to be as well achieved and as easy to do if we continue to allow being bombarded with all of these signals and our people being so sidetracked by constantly looking at a cell phone. So since I was alive in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and a good chunk of that period that I just mentioned, people were not holding a cell and they weren't being entertained by it. You know, they weren't always gravitating to it because, come on, let's face it, it's got a lot of really interesting insights. And it's easy to, especially if a child grows up and the first thing they have is an iPad in their hand, which, you know, most of the people that invented a lot of this technology, you know, the Gates and the Bushes and all that, they didn't put that in their children's hands. So as I learned working at a Waldorf school in Santa Cruz in the year 2000, you don't want to put that stuff, this technology or trick knowledge, into the hands of children because it makes them more herd dependent, more cognitively dissonant. And that's a fact. And now what we're seeing is children just staying inside, children spending, 80 to 90 to 99% of their time just with mother and father. They're not forming friendships and going to the friend's house and being gone for a weekend and going to camp and, doing all these things that they would have done because of what is now created. All right, so if you follow me, you have the magic and I have the magic. We all have the magic. And it's so important that even though I am regenerating myself right now, from the loss of my child to where I was in such an unhealthy state that I'm sure, absolutely sure, I was in congestive heart disease for well over a couple of years. It was remarked to me. I had to stop and think about it and go, that's not me. I've always been super vibrant Karen. But this row that we went on, where my son fell at the terrain park, had a surgery the first week in February of 2016, broke his right clavicle, the collarbone. A metal plate was put in and 6 metal screws, and jar after jar after jar of pain pills was sent home by Dr. Mark C. Gregerson, orthopedic surgeon in Moose Lake, Minnesota, who I understand and overstand has now closed his doors since I've involved the Minnesota DA asking for a prescription history. My son at first was obviously addicted to the pain pills. I called Dr. Gregerson's office, spoke with Patty, who's his assistant, and said, my son is addicted. What am I going to do about this? I need help. She says, what do you want us to do? I said, well, I didn't really understand what was going on in the world about opiates and opioids. I didn't understand how significant the situation is. I don't have medications. I don't have Tylenol in my medicine cabinet. I don't have aspirin. I don't take any medications. I don't doctor unless it's an emergency or I had to go once a year for a certificate of health to continue my business. It was licensed and insured. Still is in Cloquet. So my son fell. He was taken down off the hill on a A ski mobile? Oh, yeah. What do you call it? Snowmobile, ski mobile. I don't ride these things. I wish I would on occasion, but maybe I will in the future. He was taken down on a snowmobile by the ski patrol. It was in terrible situation, terrible pain. He called, and my phone was on silent because I was doing massage and wellness, for 18 years, and I needed to make sure my phone didn't ring loud, so I didn't hear it. So I got a call later and met over at the hospital where he was, and it was, almost perforating out of the skin, the bone. It was just terrible. I had no idea what was going to befall us based on getting trapped up in the medical industry. So I took my son to a second opinion before the surgery that was done on a Sunday. Dr. Gregerson informed us that he was going on a fabulous cruise and that he could only get it done on a Sunday. So that's what we did. We went into the hospital. There's very few people there at Cloquet Memorial. I thought, this just doesn't feel right. I don't like it. My son was already dehydrated. He couldn't sleep because of the pain. And he has a thyroid situation that was not fully diagnosed, but I knew it was there. He wasn't listening to me about it. And so now the stress of the injury and the upcoming surgery and the pain was exacerbating that situation very quickly. Long story short, 2016, October of 2016, he and his partner moved out into their own place. I didn't see the addiction going on. It was well hidden. He then starts buying drugs on the street. And so I'm thinking, what's going on? I text him, do you want to go to lunch? And he's not really answering. I come to his house and his coloring's really off. He looks kind of grayed out. He just doesn't seem like himself. I scheduled him his dentist appointment at the Cloquet dentist. And when he showed up, he was really sweating and talking really fast. And I thought, my gosh, is he trying cocaine or what's going on? I don't know what's going on. He's like, no, Mom, I'm fine, So I continued filming my YouTube videos, 2017. You can see I've got beautiful dreadlocks. My skin is gleaming. I feel great. But I started crying before we filmed those couple of YouTube videos because as a mother, I was like, my God, something's terribly wrong. And I don't know exactly what it is. So 2017 got bad. It got really bad to where we'd go somewhere and Zahwa would be in the bathroom at King Creams or Whole Foods or whatever. And I'd be knocking at the door going, what's going on? Come out of the bathroom. At first it's like, are you okay in there? And after a while, his girlfriend, his partner, was like, I'm so fed up with this right now. Like, this is just what he's doing. And so finally I said, Christina, damn it. I want to know what's going on. What is he using? Why didn't you come to tell me? She goes, Mama, it's heroin. What? 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 I have a picture over here, driving across country, singing songs. Took my son and his friend while they were in high school. My son graduated at 19. Of him saying, I'm never going to end up being a bum like that. Seeing a man who was a heroin user sitting on the curb, I'll never forget it. Because my retort way back before all of this was, but for the grace of Jah go I, or but for the grace of God go I, or but for the grace of Buddha go I, whatever and however you want to say it with all due respect. I said, whoa, you don't know how that man came there. Everyone is someone's baby. Everyone is precious and may have been left alone in the world, much like I am right now. 2018 came. We got to the emergency room several times. I held him while he had diarrhea in his sweatpants. He goes, Mom, I don't want it to get all over you. I'm so embarrassed. I said, I don't care. I'm here for you. I don't care if there's diarrhea, shit, vomit. I don't care what's on me. It's from you and I love you. And I'm here to wrap my mama arms around you and support you. I knew that it was overwhelming for his partner. She's young. She wasn't experienced. I'd worked as a person who's facilitating healing for a very long time. I'd had people on my table at that point for about 15, 16 years in Minnesota and done a lot of healing in California preceding it. So I had more maturity to handle it. That is, a definite fact. And I tried my best to support her and wrap my arms around her and say, I love you both. Really need you guys to move back home. No, no, no. We'll get a handle on this. Well, then the house got robbed. And then we entered into where in March of 2018, I said, Christina, you're going to need to go home with your mama. I'm afraid I'm going to lose you both. And I'm worn to the core. This is March of 2018. I was worn, fried. They were fighting. There was stuff all over the place. The house was getting broken. I was like, oh my God, this is like an absolute nightmare. And who do you call? Like, who is going to come in and fix this for you? No one, right? So my son went into treatment, and he went into treatment about 3 times inside of CADT, the Center for Alcohol and Drug Treatment in Duluth. And inside, they have several different branches. They have a 28-day men's, a 28-day women's residential program. They have a specific opiate detox called Pathfinders, or they did at that time, that's designed to be 3 to 5 or 6 days to help the person to detox, and then they get them onto Suboxone or methadone. Typically, I believe it's Suboxone. Okay, the first time my son went, he was put on a very high dose of Suboxone. It was just incredulous. It was about 16 milligrams. The second time was about 12 milligrams. So then they transitioned him, seeing that he was making multiple attempts. He wanted to. He told me, Mom, I think this thing is going to take me out. And I said, no, hell or high water, it is not going to take you out. Trust me, I've got you. I've got you. In 2018, and I've got all the notes in a tote that are going to go into my book about opiates and about this journey, this incredible, painful, exhausting, but very highly experiencing and learning journey. How can you even put it into words? My son went for the first night to the Howard Friese sober home. They have 3 of them, to my knowledge. I didn't go there. He was transferred directly from CADT to the CADT's sober home. And I didn't have much knowledge about him, but he went, and I called him several times on his cell phone, which they gave back to him, and he could use it in the house. How are you doing, hon? I'm calling to check in on you. Good, Mom, I'm good. I'll call you back later. Okay, all right, but make sure you call me back later, because I'm here waiting with bated breath. So again, we got closer and closer to dinner time, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Zahwa, I want to find out how you're doing. How are you? Meanwhile, he was on his phone setting up a deal so he could score. He called me and he said, I'm fine. Just leave me alone. You're bugging me. You're bugging me so much. It's my first day. I'm trying to get to know the guys. I'm like, whoa, we've been through so much. I'm just trying to make sure you're okay. I just need to hear your voice. You're okay. Like, you don't have time to talk. You're rushing me off the phone. Talk for about 5 minutes and I'll be at peace. I'll go to sleep tonight. I'll start banking up on the sleep that I'm missing. We'll both heal. This is where the magic comes in, that I really want you to get the picture, because you have this ability. I have this ability for sure. I'm absolutely certain of it. And I know that if we started to awaken and realize that we all have this ability, and I'm trying my best to break it into a story without going on and on and on, but so that you can really kind of start to get the feel of it, and it's not too much for you, because this is real. This is 100% real. This happened. My son knows it. I know it. Other people know it. I laid down. I went to sleep that night. The first night he was at the Howard Friese sober home. The first time. I didn't hear back from him. I thought, okay, Karen, stop. You've already called many times. Stop being such a worrywart. You are so sleep deprived, so adrenal exhausted. This is 2018. I laid down to go to sleep on the floor like I usually did. And I had my phone laying there with the volume turned down I was so used to having the volume on full blast. So if I even started to go to sleep because I was so sleep deprived, I would wake up and jump and grab the phone because, Mom, I've had an accident. Mom, I'm stuck over by Lake Superior. Mom, I'm in the library and some guy just hit me, you know? All of these things start happening with addiction as the lifestyle starts to erode, you know, and they're getting what they need and trying to eat and trying to stay warm. I didn't want to lose them from something simple and preventable. There's a difference between enabling people. So I go to sleep. I actually completely fall asleep. My phone is there, but the volume is on a lower ring so that I don't hear all the pings and pangs on Facebook. And I could try to just like get some sleep without always startling awake. I am dreaming and I'm going into a dream, which is very different than a vision. And as I'm sleeping, the next thing I know, I'm sound asleep. My eyes are closed. I'm completely asleep. In the dream, I open my eyes, not physically, but in the dream, and I feel like I'm high. So my body is laying on the floor, completely asleep. My eyes physically are completely closed, but I'm in a dream. And I awaken in lucid dreaming or vision or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But we all have this. Since I was taught that we have this ability and not exactly the way this experience came about, this was a first for me, like this. But now I know this is possible. I'm laying on the floor, eyes closed, sound asleep. I wake up internally, open my eyes, and I'm looking around and it's kind of blurry and I'm really high and I'm a little bit dizzy and I'm kind of off. I was seeing through my son's eyes. I looked over and I saw two women with scrubs, light blue scrubs, walking down the hall, and one of them was kind of like making fun of me, like, whatever, you know, as I was like completely out of it. I realized in the dream, lucid dreaming, visioning, whatever you want to call it, sound asleep, body completely still, not moving, eyes closed. I woke my body up in a complete startle, gasped, complete large gasp for air, grabbed my cell phone that was laying not too far from my head, which I would have never done because I don't like laying next to electropollution, especially not near my head, especially when I'm trying to sleep. Grabbed my phone and on Facebook Messenger, very cryptic, Mom, help, I need you now. I've never needed you as much as I need you right now. My God, what the hell? I hadn't even had a moment to truly make sense of what was happening. I hadn't really truly woken up, except that I'd grabbed my phone, startled and gasping, because I was seeing out of my child's eyes, who at this point is now about 22 years old, laying in the emergency room in a gown, being treated as an opioid overdose. The sober home had called the ambulance knowing that he was high, and when my son got high on slow, heroin, opiates, what you get on the street is likely going to have some other things in it and often had fentanyl in it. Where most people would get the nod and do this kind of thing, my son got energized, spastic movements, sweating, tachycardia. So the other members of the sober home called an ambulance and had him taken to the hospital. And after the hospital, because I refused to get up at that point, it was at 1:30 in the morning approximately. I'll go back and look at my notes for the book. They took him to detox. I was pissed. I was glad he was alive. I was shocked that while I was asleep, I had connected with his life force energy. I had been seeing through his physical eyes. I saw the ladies walk by in the hallway. I saw the bright lights of the hospital. I looked and I thought, how am I? This takes me to the movie Avatar. It takes me to an overstanding of when we develop and clarify our tempo, what we're capable of. Now, you see, 9 times out of 10, people would hear a story like this, a share, and they would say, that's a little too far out. She was probably having some hypnagogic hallucinations, you know. That's a little bit too far out there. She must be kind of, starved for attention, or, we don't do that kind of stuff. That's divining, and that's only up to God. It's in the Bible. We don't do that stuff. My grandmother lost her firstborn son, Dennis Hodges, 1961, the year I was born. My mother lost her firstborn son shortly after he was born. She named him Dennis after my grandmother's firstborn son of 4 children that died. My firstborn son has died. I heard something to that effect when I was between the ages of 4 and 6 years old in my room by myself. I used to spend a lot of time in contemplation, wondering, why am I alive? What's my purpose in life? What's life all about? Why are we even here? What's going on here? So philosophy and psychology were a really natural fit for me in college. They gave me more fodder for thought. They gave me insights. They gave me dynamic professors. Dr. DJ Serralo, Professor DJ Serralo at West Valley College was absolutely one who spurred critical thinking. I will never forget the magic that's inside of us. It's not just inside of me, it's inside of you. But when industries come along and they tell you, you can't do that, that's not really true. And they push you and they prod you. They take away your medical freedom, like we talked about yesterday. They change your food. They make you think that the only way to check yourself and to heal yourself is with what's going on today, which is absolutely wrong. It's untrue. When we slept together, we were not hyper-hormonalized like we are today. There are so many people that are copper toxic that when I tissue test them with the hair tissue test, sometimes their copper levels look very, very low on an absolute level. But on a relative level, there's absolute and relative. There may be a lot of bound copper, which is also a heavy element, stuck in the liver, in other organs, in other tissues in the body that needs to be mobilized and excreted. Copper is a highly conductive metal. It was placed in the coils inside of the vehicles until we now have come on to computerized vehicles that have chips and run on similar to the motherboard. You have magic inside of you. You have the ability to do things when you lay down and go to sleep and connect at a level that most people are not aware of. And frankly, because of the silencing of what you're capable of when it comes to magic, they're actually afraid of it. They have no tolerance to even hear it. I never had an experience like that before, and I've never had an experience like that again. But that night, when I laid down and my son was crying out to me, he was scared, he was out of control. I've seen Essentia Hospital twice when I've brought him in tachycardic in the roll-up emergency door and said, he's tachycardic, I really need help. I'm really not sure about driving him home for half an hour in the dark. We're really run down. My car has high miles. I need help. I love my son. I want to make sure he doesn't have a heart problem on the way home. We can give him Ativan. I said, why don't you put some magnesium in his IV? Well, we're going to treat him or we're not. As long as we remain so stiff, so rigid, so cognitively dissonant, so unaware that these trace elements have to do with your intuitive levels, your perceptive levels, your ability to have empathy, that now people that want to profit off of you have built by design a fake appeal to you to say, she's an empath. Mm-mm. Empathy is an animal trait. You have dogs, they want to take care of their young. You have kangaroos, they want to take care of their young. Okay? You have birds, they want to take care of their young. Empathy is a natural trait in warm-blooded animals. There's no such thing as an empath. Mm-mm. You may have a higher degree of experiencing empathy when you're not locked down, when you're not so hormonally insane. But since we have women that were taking the birth control pill, that were given HRT, hormonal replacement therapy, copper, estrogen buildup has created toxic copper dump. When the copper levels get too high, the intuitive and perceptive gets kind of crazy. It gets where it's like, no, that doesn't even sound real. Okay? That doesn't feel grounded in truth. And when they're way, 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 way too low on the copper levels, we're tired, prone to infections. We're depressed. We don't feel intuitive at all. We just need logic. We need to be very left-brained. Just give us logic, analytical. We're the engineer type. Facts only. Where is the hard science? If it's not tangible, I don't want to hear about it. Very different than someone who's very predominantly right brain. But if you cannot balance both hemispheres and communicate between both hemispheres, you won't be able to balance being both a very intuitive, perceptive, as well as forming a logical basis and conclusion. I know for a fact that's what I experienced while I was asleep. And then when I woke up with a gasp, and I looked over at my phone and I saw that my son was in fact crying out for me, "Where are you, Mom?" Knowing that I was jumping at the drop of a hat, the drop of a pin. So I'm still at a place where, my eyes are still a little puffy. My thyroid still needs a little help. My energy is still a little lower than normal. My coloring isn't quite good, But I've healed so radically in the last year by doing what I know how to do. So I'm going to toss it out there with love. I may be offering a course, a paid course with live modules once a week for an hour, live module with a once a week little study component that goes along with it on trace elements. So I think there's a lot of people that would really have a genuine interest in that. So thank you for joining me. We all have the magic inside of us. It might look like the situation I described where I was asleep, and it was similar to what you hear in lucid dreaming, that I had connected with my son on a physical level. If you listen to Greg Braden over the years or any of the other speakers like myself talk about bilocation, there was a study done with a husband and a wife that were older. They were older than 55. They were 2,500 miles, or they were far apart by thousands of miles. Husband had cancer or some kind of a disease. Wife was at home. Husband was flown way away for the treatment. They put sensors on the husband like you do a galvanic skin response. They asked wife, when husband had no idea when she was going to do it, send him loving, healing energy. You just love him so much. You don't want him to die. Send him amazing energy right at 10 o'clock in the morning. Husband, again, had no idea. He just knew that, wife was going to send him something at some particular time. At precisely the time she was asked to deliver the healing energy, just sit there quietly and send him healing, beautiful energy. You love him. Well, she's connected. They lived together day in and day out for over 40 years or however long it was. It was a long time. I didn't memorize all the details of the study. But at the precise time that she turned on this thinking, sending, healing to her husband, and they're being so connected, like my son and I, right? He immediately registered on the skin, sensors, the healing energy from the wife. Okay. Bilocation means the energy went from her to him. It bilocated from her to her husband, thousands of miles away. Now, I've had experiences where I've had someone on Facebook that I love dearly, and I'm laying there before my son became addicted, and I was, this took up the lion's share of my day. And I was laying there. I wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning only to find that a woman, that's one of the testimonials on my website at naturallywithkaren.com, was having excruciating stomach pains, and she couldn't sleep, and she just felt horrible. And I messaged her on Facebook, and I go, "You're not feeling good. I can feel it, like your stomach is really, really off." She goes, "How in the hell did you know that?" I'm like, "Well, I just somehow tuned into your energy. Like maybe you were thinking about me. I was thinking about you." I mean, if I hadn't had this happen hundreds of times, if I hadn't been raised the way that I was, in large part from 0 to 5 by my maternal grandmother, how would I have ever known? I wouldn't. But I built and built upon this such that when I opened my business as licensed and insured in Cloquet, Minnesota, you can call them and ask them, Cloquet, Minnesota, Cloquet. Easy to call them and ask them on tomorrow when they open. Karen Pringle. Was she licensed February 1st of 2003? I had a little 7-year-old boy who is my everything in life. I prayed. I asked the ancestors to bring him forth. I cleaned my womb for him. I envisioned him. I imagined him. I did everything I possibly could to bring forth an ancestor with integrity. I opened my business 2/1/03, February 1st of 03. I was shaking. I was so nervous. I'd gone to massage school. I'd gone to herbal school. I was a shaman, but I was a baby shaman compared to today. My medicine was nothing as compared to what it is today. And I shook when I had my first client, and I was like, oh my God, and how am I going to massage 2 clients a day, 2 hours of standing on my feet and all this rubbing and changing the sheets? How am I going to do all that? Oh my God. I was so scared. I was nervous. I got moody. I was afraid, but I did it. These hands have worked. These hands are now medical instruments. They've touched hundreds of thyroids. They've massaged and felt cysts and lumps and bumps. They've cried with my clients. They've picked up clients that became emaciated and rocked them and helped them to see the colors and helped them towards their transition, knowing that their life was nearing the end. Betty Sorella was one of those who came to me for 6 months, knowing she had a particularly virulent cancer called small cell cancer. And she asked if she could come for an hour and a half once a week because she knew that the family around her was not capable of giving her the kind of nurturing that she wanted on her exit. She knew that she likely wouldn't be around after that 6 months. She was a nurse, a top nurse at Essentia, working the night shift so she could take care of her grandson, who's close in age to my son. That's all I wanted to share with you today. I would love to hear your comments and feedback, and I won't have to sit here in my house. I'll be able to use my phone once we get to 1,000 subscribers. Could you help me by asking your friends and family to subscribe? I have so much content that I'm going to be bringing you that's really legitimately going to help you: intuitive, perceptive, medical, health and wellness, dogs, essential oils, all kinds that I have a great deal of experience with. Not a know it all, but I know a few things. As a shaman and a medicine woman, if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, I'll be able to use my phone. But YouTube has been changing a lot of the requirements to be able to use the phone, so I can't go outside and use it. Thank you so much for joining me. And I'd love to hear your comments on this particular live stream today. Remember, you have the magic inside of you. Just remember to use it, and don't be afraid to use it. Don't let anyone tell you it's not okay or God doesn't want you to use it. You wouldn't have had it innately packaged inside of you. That's not the truth. The truth will set you free. And remember, nothing is what they told you. See you next time.